This is Chris, the Idaho Painter.
And this is McKenna, Miss Idaho Painter.
And this is part 5 of painting McKenna's house. So we got done. Let's see, we did spackling all the holes in the walls. We did prepping the trim, painting the trim, and then we painted the ceilings. That was part 4. Now we're on to finally the really cool part, and that's putting color on your walls. So stay tuned for painting McKenna's walls next. This video is brought to you by Paint Life Gear. Shirts, hats, really cool tools and accessories on our Paint Life store. Go check it out. theidahopainter.com is where you can find all of our cool gear. Anyways, McKenna's a little bit happy today. So today, this is going to be painting McKenna's walls. So we've got the ceilings all done. We've got the trim all done. Now we're going to be painting the walls. And we're going to be rolling them. We rolled the ceilings. We sprayed the trim. Some of the tools and accessories we're going to be using today, we're just going to be rolling the trim with a 9-inch roller. This is, or not the trim, we're gonna be rolling the walls because we're only doing 3 walls in this bedroom with one color. The rest of the house is gonna be a different color. So we've got a Premier roller. We're using a Premier Woven Pro roller, and then we're using a Premier Montauk brush. I really like this brush for doing the cut-ins. We're using a tray liner. That way we don't get any paint in our tray. We're gonna be masking our trim, the top of our trim, with frog tape, and then prior to our final cut-in, we'll be caulking that with clear caulking so we get perfectly crisp lines. But we'll probably have to spray 2 coats, or not spray, but roll 2 coats on the walls. So we're gonna cut in, roll 1 coat, and then roll a final coat, and then we'll be done. But we do have one thing. McKenna, you can grab that pole right there, because these walls, the previous painters had a lot of kind of bad little imperfections all over the walls, and they're gonna need to be sanded first. And this is a 360-degree just pole sander. And I'm gonna have McKenna just sand these walls, and all you gotta do is just go
I don't like that noise.
up and down, anywhere where you spackle. McKenna spackled a whole bunch of things. You just gotta, rub it over and sand those spots. Because this is a Sun Valley texture. It's a smooth texture with kind of some voids everywhere, here and there, and we want it to look really good. But there's a lot of rough stippling on the wall, and we want to kind of, knock that down, first and smooth it out. I know when I was going over the walls, there was quite a few rough spots on these walls, McKenna, and we don't want them rough like sandpaper. So let's get on with the painting process.
Okay, the next step in rolling, before we roll the walls, we gotta take the switch plates off. Okay, Chris? So you're gonna take this thing,
all right.
and you're gonna
So now you're the one that's barking orders now. Yep. So we got to take the switch plates off because we don't want to, or we want to paint behind the switch plates. So just a flathead screwdriver, just going to pull all the switch plates off, put them in a little bucket so the screws and switch plates don't get lost. And McKenna, you'll start loading up your 9-inch roller right there. And you're going to put...
Or I'm telling you, Chris, I'm going to start loading up my roller here while you do that, okay?
All right, so you got to load up, you just load it up. And we're going to be putting 2 coats on these walls. It's going to take 2 coats to cover, typically always. So we're going to put a thin coat on first coat so it dries really fast. So loading up the wall, loading up your roller, you want to just get it loaded up first. So we'll just keep loading it up in a pan. And we're using a 9-inch roller because we're only doing 3 walls. So we're not using our inner fed roller because it's just these 3 walls in the room, so just a very small section. So now it's loaded up. Now I'll be working in sections. This is how I typically roll a wall. I'm gonna roll it from top to bottom. Still not completely fully loaded, but you gotta dip your roller often. Get it to the point where you can roll from top to bottom, do a section, and then I'm gonna move over a little bit. And I typically place my roller right in the middle of the wall and then begin releasing the paint from top
I can do that.
to bottom. All right, you start moving down the walls. I'm gonna take off the switch plates for you. So you wanna make sure you don't have any like trailing edges. So it's looking pretty good. So load up your roller often. You don't ever want to do what we call dry napping it. So if you start to go too far, you'll start to hear the roller making too much noise and kind of like hissing. It'll be telling you that, hey, I'm a little bit too dry. I need some more paint. It should be nice and saturated. It should be nice and quiet as you roll. I'm just rolling from top to bottom. I don't have to be particular about laying out my paint on my first coat with a color like this. This color is very forgiving. But if I'm going from top to bottom, I'm not putting on very much pressure, just very little pressure. If I put too much pressure at the bottom, it's going to cause a heavy spot that's going to run. It's going to be the same as at the top. So if I get to the top and I put too much pressure at the top, it leaves a heavy spot up there that will run. So just very little pressure. It feels very saturated. Just kind of like try to feel the roller and feel how wet it is. I want it to be always saturated and not dry. You can see I'm only doing, one section at a time that's about 12 inches wide, and then I'm reloading it and moving on over. It's looking really nice. Keep your pan next to you, so you just kind of slide your pan as you go, because if you're walking to your pan all the time, it just takes more time to roll.
I did too much.
It's all right. And if you did too much, then you just take and roll down to your right, and it'll release some of the paint on the wall. And I will show you another little trick, because you dripped a little paint. I'm going to show you how to not drip your paint. So this is another handy little tip. When you take and load up your roller, if you load up your roller like this and now I carry it to wherever I'm going, you're probably going to drip. So you load it up and you just twist it as you go. As long as I'm standing here twisting, my roller can never drip paint, because if you let it set here, eventually it's going to settle and come down here and drip. So what you do is eventually you get to a point where if you step to my right there, my left there, eventually you'll get to a point where it's just subconscious. When I take and bring it here, I'm kind of rolling it and twisting it as I go. And that rolling and twisting movement will make it so you never drip paint. If I see any heavy spots, like right there, it was a little heavy where you were saying, you can just take now and I can just lay that spot out, and it just leveled it out because I emptied out some of my paint there. There you go. Use that twisting movement to not drip paint. And then when you get to this corner, let me show you one trick, because this corner right here, because this is going to be accent wall, it's a different color. When I get to this corner, if I take my roller and just run it along the edge and kind of press along the edge, it's going to get paint all along that edge right there, so I don't have to cut it in with a brush. So I'm just putting a little more pressure on the end of the roller. There is a roller called the corner roller specifically for that, but we don't have one here today.
Oh.
Whoops. What are you going to do about that? Okay, let me go get a wet rag.
What am I gonna do?
Hang on. So one of the nice things about wall paint is, unlike trim paint, even after it dries, it comes off pretty easily, but we can just wipe this off. All right, McKenna, so we've got our first coat on our walls rolled, and now what's really nice about
Well, how did I do?
You did a great job. The walls look
Honestly?
excellent, but they do they do need another coat. So it's very rare you can ever get one coat on a wall and have it coated professionally. If you look right here, you can kind of see some little white speckled dots from the color underneath. So just kind of a telltale sign that it needs a second coat. But one thing that's really nice when it comes to having two people paint, one person can do the cut-ins and one person can roll the walls. So what's ideal is, I'll do the ceiling cut-ins and then I'll come down here and do the baseboard cut-ins. I'll caulk it with clear caulking, and then I'll do the cut-in, and then you roll the wall while those two cut-ins are wet, and then we pull the tape and the wall is done. So what you want to do is go over my cut-ins, because my cut-ins are going to be going horizontal on the wall and you're going vertical, and you want to cover most of that up, or you'll see it. It's called what we call haloing if you don't. So We'll do that technique and we just work wall to wall. If I get too far ahead of you, my cut-ins will dry, and then when you go over it, it's gonna cause that haloing effect. So we're gonna start working wall to wall. We only got 3 walls here to go, and then we're gonna do the accent wall, which is gonna be really cool. It's gonna be a bow arrow accent coating. I think they've got a couple options, and I think what we're gonna do is one of their Venetian plasters, and it's gonna look like a concrete wall. It's gonna look really amazing.
It'll look royal.
Royal. So it's gonna go good with your furniture because your furniture is kind of a gray looking wood, so a weathered gray, so it'll look really cool. So let's get on here and we'll tackle these 2 walls, and then we'll just move on to the rest of the house.
Out. I don't know what's going on, okay? I'm just doing my best in life. Don't be like one of those critics on Instagram. It's my first time.